What I wanted to do today, Eric, if we could, is I want to focus a little bit on the concept of leadership and talk a little bit about what you have seen work best as you've worked with companies or in through your own experiences as it comes to leaders and their role in a lean startup.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a simple definition. I'll borrow from our chairman, Bill Campbell. He says, your business card makes you a manager. Your people decide whether or not you're a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So in that context, what is the role of a leader in a lean startup company or a lean startup project?
You know, a lot of the traditional ideas about leadership are still right. And I love that quote because fundamentally, leadership is about inspiring people to take right action. And the whole lean startup framework is about acknowledging that unlike in management eras of the past, we don't know what the right action is through analysis. So, you know, to borrow Scott's phrase, managers used to be trained to play Caesar. You pitch them an idea, they give it the thumbs up if it's a good idea, thumbs down if it's a bad idea. Well, that presupposes that someone with management training can already know if an idea is good or not. And I think that that is something that's really hard for us traditional managers to let go. But it's time, because we live in a world that's far too uncertain, especially when we're talking about disruptive innovation, new product introductions, things that the world's never seen before. We don't know what's going to work. So I think the kind of definition of leadership in the lean startup era is building the systems that empower your employees to find the answers for themselves. So that when they come to talk to you about a new idea, it's not a theoretical, hey, I maybe have it. They're like, let me show you the data that shows that this is in fact a good idea and we should continue to pursue it.
I love that concept. You know, there was a wonderful quote Peter Drucker used to say, which is the bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. That's one of those things that leaders don't want to admit. But
That's
what you
so
just
true.
described is a very empowering process, not only for the leader, but also for the employees in the organization.
Yes.
Because they're the ones closest to the work, closest to the customer, and quite frankly, the ones who tend to have the answers sooner than the leaders.
Mm-hmm. When I talk to companies, they often ask me, you know, where am I going to come up with good ideas? And an established company, that really isn't the problem. I mean, I have colleagues who work in big companies, you know, from the most junior employee on up. I can sit them down and be like, hey, what are some things your company could be doing better? And I can't get them to shut up. I mean, they got 100 ideas of things that might work, things that they've seen that don't work, customer problems that they've experienced. I mean, there's too many good ideas. The challenge is when I ask them the follow-up question, I say, great, do you know what the process would be to get one of those ideas tested so you could prove to senior management it should be the basis of a whole new division of your company? And they look at me like, well, no, there's no process for that. That's the problem. We have to really think about systematically. If someone has a good idea, no matter what it says on their business card, how would we get that idea tested to figure out if it's actually any good or, you know, half the time it's probably crazy.
Sure, makes sense. So if you think about a leader in that environment and you talk about the role they play, step back and reflect on the leaders that you've seen do this successfully. What attributes do they tend to come to the table with? What are those characteristics or skills that you see them apply that may be different from the traditional manager who used to play Caesar?
Yeah. I mean, humility is the first thing that pops into my mind. And it's so the opposite of the old style of leadership. It was about projecting confidence and getting people to follow you into the abyss because they were confident that you had all the answers. And the challenge here is, how do you inspire confidence in a world where you don't know the answers? And so projecting a false confidence actually is demoralizing in the long run, because eventually people will discover that some of the things you told them about, you know, what the great product was going to be aren't right, and it can make them really afraid to admit the truth that it's not working. So the humility that's necessary to say, I don't have all the answers, but I believe in the vision. Still give that inspirational quality to say we're headed to a destination, but we don't exactly know the best way to get there. That creates a context and a conversation for then doing all the techniques from Lean Startup, you know, identifying hypotheses and testing them and experimenting and admitting failure and pivoting and all that stuff. The kind of flip side of that is it requires a lot more willingness to think rigorously about your own ideas. You know, it requires a scientific discipline, which I think was also not always present in the older styles of management. Because if the leader's not willing to break their plan down into a series of hypotheses to be tested and rigorously ask, do we have evidence that we're on the right track, then if they can't do that themselves, they certainly aren't going to be able to ask their employees to do the same. They're going to say, all this testing, that's just a smokescreen for doing what the leader wanted to do anyway.